Imagine you are at a garage sale and you see a dusty 500 gigabyte external hard drive sitting in a bin for $5. You buy it, thinking you've scored a cheap backup solution for your photos. You get home, plug it in, and the activity light starts flickering like a nervous heartbeat. At first, it looks empty. But then you notice a hidden partition or a folder buried 10 layers deep titled System Backups. You click it, expecting old tax returns or blurry vacation photos, but instead the screen fills with encrypted logs, strange audio frequencies, or coordinates for places that aren't on any public map. This isn't a creepypasta. This is the daily reality for data recovery specialists, e-professionals, and digital forensic experts. We live in an era where we trust these silicon boxes with our deepest secrets, our most private moments, and sometimes our most troubling thoughts. But here is the thing about data. It is almost impossible to truly erase. Today, we are opening the digital Pandora's box. We are exploring the most disturbing things hidden on hard drives, from forgotten government projects to mysterious digital artifacts that shouldn't exist. Strap in, because your deleted files might be a lot closer than you think. Let's start with the fundamental technology. Why is a hard drive such a perfect witness to our lives? Most people think that when they drag a file to the recycle bin and hit empty, that data is gone. It vanished into the digital ether. But in the world of computer science, that is almost never what happens. Your operating system is lazy. Instead of spending the energy to flip millions of magnetic bits on the platter from a 1 to a 0, it simply goes to the file index and says this space is now available for rent. The original data stays there, ghost-like, waiting for something else to be written over it. This is why data recovery is such a booming business. It is also why buying used hardware is a game of digital Russian roulette. People sell their old laptops thinking they've wiped them, but to a professional with a bit of forensic software, that drive is an open book. We aren't just talking about embarrassing search histories. We are talking about the blueprints of a person's entire existence. One of the most unsettling categories of hidden data involves what IT pros call the ghost in the machine. These are artifacts left behind by software that wasn't supposed to be running. There are documented cases of people purchasing used server drives from decommissioned corporate offices only to find thousands of hours of ambient audio recordings. Sometimes a poorly configured voice-to-text program or a piece of intrusive telemetry software continues to record through a laptop's microphone even when the lid is closed. Imagine a technician sitting in a lab, wearing headphones, trying to recover a corrupted partition, and suddenly they are listening to the private, mundane conversations of a family from 3 years ago. The clinking of silverware, a dog barking, a whispered argument about bills. It is a level of accidental surveillance that feels like a violation of the soul. These accidental recordings are often buried in temp files or cache folders, hidden away where the average user would never think to look, acting as a silent witness to a life they didn't know was being archived. Then, there is the world of sleeper data. This is a phenomenon found often on hard drives coming out of high-security environments or research facilities. There have been instances where enthusiasts have bought old industrial computers from government auctions, machines that ran old-school lathes or controlled heating systems, only to find encrypted partitions containing data that seems way too complex for a thermostat. We are talking about predictive algorithms for economic collapses, old climate models that look terrifyingly accurate, or encrypted communication logs that use ciphers that haven't been broken yet. Finding this kind of information feels like stumbling upon a time capsule from a future you weren't supposed to see. The disturbing part isn't just the content, it's the fact that it was forgotten. It suggests that there is a vast amount of dark data floating around the world, sitting on magnetic platters in junkyards, containing information that could potentially change the course of history if the wrong person with the right decryption key found it. Let's dive into something even more technical and creepy: the Host Protected Area, or HPA. This is a region of a hard drive that is designed to be invisible to the operating system. Usually companies use it to store recovery tools, or BIOS data. However, because it is invisible to Windows or macOS, it has become the ultimate hiding spot for things that shouldn't be found. Digital forensic experts have found instances of rootkits and malicious firmware living in the HPA. This is code that survives a full format of the drive. You could delete every partition, Reinstall your OS 5 times, and the code stays there, tucked away in that hidden sliver of the drive. There was a famous case involving a high-level corporate spy who used the HBA of employee laptops to funnel out trade secrets. The employees had no idea why their computers were running 5% slower, and the IT department's scanners found nothing because the scanners were only looking where the operating system told them to look. The drive was essentially lying about its own size, hiding a secret room where a digital intruder was living rent-free. But hidden data isn't always about spies or corporations. Sometimes, it's about the digital echoes of the previous owner's mental state. There is a psychological weight to some hard drive finds. A data recovery specialist once shared a story about a drive he received that was physically damaged. It looked like it had been thrown against a wall. When he finally got the platters spinning and bypassed the errors, he found thousands of unsent emails. They were all addressed to a person who had vanished years prior. It was a digital journal of someone spiraling into a deep, desperate obsession. Page after page of text that was never meant to be read, documenting a descent into a very dark place. Reading that data isn't like reading a book. It's like being forced into someone's head at their most vulnerable. It underlines the fact that hard drives are often the only places where people are truly honest. We curate our social media, we edit our public lives, but our hard drive sees the drafts folder. It sees the search history. It sees the photos we didn't post because they were too raw or too telling. We also need to talk about the deep web traces. Every time you browse the internet, your computer is like a car driving down a muddy road. It picks up splatter in the form of cookies, cache files, and thumbnails. Even if you use privacy modes, things get written to the disk. There have been disturbing cases where people bought used computers and found thumbnails of illegal or highly disturbing content that the previous owner had accessed on the fringes of the internet. The terrifying thing here is that the new owner is now in possession of that data. If the police were to knock on the door, that hard drive would be the primary evidence. It is a form of digital contamination, where the sins of a stranger can be physically transferred to you through a $5 hardware transaction. This is why cybersecurity experts always recommend zero-filling a drive or physically destroying the platters before getting rid of an old machine. You aren't just protecting your data, you are ensuring you don't inherit someone else's digital baggage. Then there is the mystery of shadow volumes. Windows has a feature called Volume Shadow Copy, which is meant to help you restore old versions of files. But it also means that even if you edit a document to remove sensitive information, like a list of passwords or an address, the old version might still be living in a shadow copy on that same drive. There have been instances where redacted government documents were leaked because someone forgot to clear the shadow copies from the hard drive they were stored on. Researchers have found everything from classified military coordinates to the private medical records of celebrities just by looking into these shadow versions. It turns out that digital whiteout is often transparent if you know which layer of the drive to peel back. It's like finding a person's secret diary written in invisible ink on the back of their grocery list. Let's talk about the metadata nightmare. Every file on your drive is wearing a tag that says when it was made, where it was made, and what tool was used to make it. If you take a photo with a smartphone, the EXIF data can store the exact GPS coordinates of where you were standing. Forensic teams have used this hidden metadata on recovered drives to track people down across continents. They've found hard drives in war zones or abandoned houses and used the metadata on a single JPG file to find out exactly where the owner's safe house was located years ago. The disturbing part is that most people have no idea they are leaving a breadcrumb trail with every click. Your hard drive is a map of your movements, your habits, and your connections, all hidden in the headers of ordinary-looking files. In the world of high-end data forensics, there is also the phenomenon of magnetic ghosting. This is a bit more theoretical but deeply unsettling. Some experts believe that even if you write a new file over an old one, the magnetic traces of the original data might still be detectable at a microscopic level using something called magnetic force microscopy. It's like writing on a piece of paper, erasing it, and then seeing the indentations left behind. While it's incredibly difficult to reconstruct a whole file this way, a sophisticated lab could potentially see ghosts of the previous data. This means that at a physical level, your hard drive might never truly forget. It is a permanent record of everything it has ever touched, an eternal witness in a suit of aluminum and glass. One of the most peculiar things hidden on hard drives is what we call idle data corruption, or bit rot. Over time, the magnetic charge on a platter can weaken, or a cosmic ray can strike a bit and flip it from a 1 to a 0. This creates disturbing results in a literal sense. Imagine opening a family photo from 10 years ago, but because of bit rot, the faces of your loved ones are distorted into jagged, colorful glitches, or an audio file that now contains high-pitched shrieks instead of music. It is a reminder that even our digital memories are decaying. There is something profoundly haunting about seeing a digital file slowly die as the hardware fails. It feels like a loss of history, a reminder that nothing, not even a digital file, is permanent. There is also the industrial secret category. Large companies often decommission thousands of drives at once. Sometimes, these drives end up on the secondary market without being properly wiped. People have found the internal bug logs for major tech companies, showing that they knew about massive security flaws years before they told the public. They've found lists of blacklisted users or internal memos that show a very different side of the companies we trust. Finding this on a hard drive is like finding the internal heart of a corporation, and it is usually a very cold, calculating place. It highlights the gap between public relations and the digital reality sitting on those server platters. We also have the encryption trap. There are volumes of data on drives all over the world that are encrypted with keys that have been lost. These are called black hole drives. They are disturbing because we know there is something inside, but we can't see it. It's a digital vault that will never be opened. Sometimes, these drives are found in the belongings of people who have disappeared or moved on, leaving behind an encrypted mystery that could explain their fate. The silence of an encrypted drive is often louder than the data on an open one. It represents a secret that someone was willing to spend time and energy to protect, a secret that now exists only as a series of scrambled bits that will eventually fade into magnetic noise. Let's look at the partition gap. When you format a drive, you often leave a few megabytes of unassigned space at the beginning or the end. This is a no man's land where hackers often hide small, malicious scripts or keystroke loggers. It is a space that doesn't show up in your My Computer window. It is the digital equivalent of a secret crawlspace in a house. Forensic analysts have found entire communication suites hidden in these gaps, allowing an infected computer to talk to a command and center server without the user ever knowing. It is a reminder that empty space on a hard drive is rarely ever empty. It is just space that hasn't been claimed by the light yet. Then there is the browser history forensic. Most people clear their history, but they don't realize that the index.dat files or the LevelDB databases used by modern browsers are incredibly resilient. They store not just the sites you visited, but the Facon icons for those sites, the titles of the pages, and even the time spent on each page. A forensic expert can reconstruct a person's entire day, minute by minute, just by looking at the browser's internal hidden files. They can see the moment a person started looking for a new job, the moment they started a secret hobby, or the moment they began to worry about a medical symptom. It is an intimate, disturbing portrait of a human life, all stored in a folder called local state or app data. We also must consider the print spooler cache. Did you know that many printers and computers save a digital copy of every document you've ever hit print on? This data is often stored in a temporary folder on the hard drive. People have found copies of everything from confidential contracts to private medical results just by looking in the print spooler's trash. It's one of those hidden in plain sight locations that people always forget to clean. Your hard drive remembers what you printed even after you've shredded the physical paper. It is a secondary archive of your most sensitive physical documents. There is a growing field of digital archaeology, where people spend their time searching through old, abandoned hard drives from the 90s and early 2000s. They find the lost projects of famous artists, the early versions of software that changed the world, and the personal blogs of people who are now long gone. But they also find the dark side of the early internet, the stuff that didn't make it into the archives. This is data that was banned by the passage of time but survived on a magnetic platter. Finding a dead person's digital life is a sobering experience. It makes you realize that your hard drive is essentially your digital footprint on the sands of time. One day, someone might be looking through your drive, wondering what kind of person you were. What will they find in your temp folders? What will your metadata say about you? The technical side of hard drive storage is also full of disturbing artifacts like bad sectors. When a part of the drive fails, the controller marks it as bad and stops writing to it. But the data that was there when it failed is often locked in those sectors. It's like a room in a hotel that was boarded up after an accident. The data is still there, but you can't get to it through normal means. However, with specialized hardware, forensic labs can read around the errors and pull out fragments of the past. These fragments are often distorted, creating a glitch art version of the original data. There is something haunting about seeing a lost file returned from a bad sector. It's like a digital ghost that has been partially erased. Let's talk about the swap file. To make your computer run faster, it uses a part of your hard drive as virtual memory. It literally swaps parts of your RAM, the bits of your brain the computer is using right now, onto the hard drive. This means that at any given time, your hard drive contains fragments of your current activity. If you were typing a secret message, looking at a private photo, or working on a sensitive document, pieces of that data could be living in the pagefile.sys or swap file. Even if you never saved the file, it was saved for you by the system. This makes the hard drive a memory bank for things you never intended to keep. It is a record of your digital thoughts, captured in real time as you lived them. There have also been cases of hidden firmware. Some research has shown that the tiny computer that lives inside your hard drive, the controller chip, can be compromised. This chip has its own memory and its own operating system. A sophisticated enough piece of code could live inside the hard drive's own brain, independent of the platters. It could listen to the data as it passes by and decide to store interesting bits in its own secret memory. This is the ultimate banned supernatural event of the computer world. It is a piece of hardware that has been possessed by an external influence. You would never find it by scanning the drive, because the drive's own brain is the one lying to you. Finally, we must consider the ethical weight of hidden data. Professionals who find disturbing things on hard drives are often bound by confidentiality, but the things they see change them. They see the reality of human nature, stripped of all the filters. They see the secrets people try to take to their graves. The hidden data on a hard drive is the true history of our species in the 21st century. It is a record of our brilliance, our curiosity, but also our darkest impulses. It reminds us that we are creating a permanent record of our lives, whether we want to or not. So how do you protect yourself? How do you ensure your hard drive doesn't become a disturbing archive? The answer is complete overwriting and physical destruction. If you have sensitive data, you can't just delete it. You need to use tools that write random noise over every single bit of the drive multiple times. And if that's not enough, a drill through the platters is the only way to be sure. But even then, as technology advances, our ability to see the past on these magnetic surfaces increases. The hard drive is the ultimate witness. Thank you for exploring this digital underworld with us today. It's a complex and often unsettling topic, but it's one that everyone who uses a computer should understand. We are all leaving a trace, and our hard drives are the storytellers of the future. Whether that story is one of innovation and joy, or one of hidden darkness, is often up to what we choose to do in the moments we think no one is watching. But remember, the silicon remembers, the magnetic bits don't lie, and somewhere, on a dusty drive in a bin, a story is waiting to be found. Stay safe, stay aware, and keep your data clean. We'll see you in the next deep dive into the technology that shapes our world. Until then, keep an eye on your activity light and think twice before you hit save. Be blessed and keep learning.